So there is a chapter called as Studio in my book. The reason I gave the name Studio is like I have a different studio other from where I stay. And every day, obviously, morning I go to my studio. I travel through the city. And the time I spend from my home to my studio is the rather interesting point because I see around while I'm driving, while I'm waiting at the signal. And so this is particularly I'm talking about thinking about one traffic signal which goes on for over a minute. So most of the people around me, when I see they are on bikes or cars or whatever vehicle they are into hurry to reach some place. But this 1 minute, you cannot do anything. And I mean, if you are following the rules, until the green becomes, you cannot go. There is no time. So this 1 minute becomes a very creative part for me because I'm looking around in a traffic signal. There are lots of hoardings, there are people moving around, there are buildings, some old buildings, some new buildings, changing atmosphere. And that gives me a very interesting visual imagery, which otherwise I wouldn't have noticed. But this 1 minute, because which I have been compelled to see and not do anything, really becomes an interesting part of the. So I have done a series of paintings which are practically on that one particular place. I call it studio, but it is actually going to my studio. It is a incidence while going to my studio. And I stay in a city where on a signal you see a lot of people moving around, a lot of vehicles going around, and a lot of hoardings, the advertisement hoardings. And initially what happened, I used to hate these hoardings, like they are creating kind of a visual pollution, I used to think. Because you can't see the building properly, you are not in a mood to read that advertisement and whatever. But then later on I realized that they also have a beauty of its own, the aesthetic of its own. Because then I see the color red in one hoarding, then that red is reflected in somebody walking around. Then same red is again reflected somewhere else. So there are a lot of visually interesting things that happen, and I could realize that only on a signal, which I used to hate initially. But creating this kind of experience really gives you I would say, epiphany, and you come up with a lot of visual excitements, and those are some of the paintings which I have discussed, tried to discuss along with the experience and the technically how I dealt with it. So these paintings are done back in the studio, but with a very fresh experience of the signal which I carried back and exploited in the studio. So please do come back, subscribe to the channel.